Signs of the times. Even though the specific date regarding the second coming of Jesus Christ is unknown, we are to be aware that certain events predict his future return. Here's Gene.
In Jeremiah chapters 50 and 51, we have some very specific prophecies regarding Babylon, the city of Babylon. Let's look at chapter 51, beginning with verse 61. It's a prophecy against Babylon. This is the city. Jeremiah told Seraiah, when you get to Babylon, see that you read all these words aloud. You must say, and here's a direct message now that was given to Jeremiah. Lord, you have threatened to cut off this place so that no one will live in it. Man or beast, indeed, it will remain desolate forever. Very significant statement. He continues, Jeremiah, when you have finished reading the scroll, tie a stone to it, throw it into the middle of the Euphrates River, and then say, and here's the rest of the statement, in the same way Babylon will sink and never rise again because of the disaster I'm bringing on her. They will grow weary. And here then is the final statement. The words of Jeremiah end here. Now the interesting thing is, Babylon fell to the Medes and the Persians. They were conquered. However, both Isaiah and Jeremiah, as we see here, predict that when Babylon is ultimately destroyed, as we read in Jeremiah, it will never rise again. Now, the fact is that even during the time of Saddam Hussein, he started rebuilding Babylon. In fact, here are some pictures, literally, of the rebuilding of Babylon. Here's Babylon in 1932. It looks desolate, right? Now, if the prophecy is true regarding Babylon, it will never be rebuilt. But here it is being rebuilt. This is during the time of Saddam Hussein. Here are ruins today. You can go to Babylon, you can see these ruins. There are people that live in that area. Here's the rebuilding of Babylon. So how do we square this with prophecy? How do we square this with prophecy? Well, let me make an important observation, and this now includes what John said in the book of Revelation about Babylon. Here's the observation. If Isaiah, Jeremiah, and John saw the literal city of Babylon being utterly destroyed, it would first be necessary for this great center of idolatry and immorality to be rebuilt, probably in its original location, which is southern Iraq. And that has never happened. So here's the question that relates to reflection and response. How does Jeremiah's prophecy regarding Babylon compare with John's vision in the book of Revelation, and how should this impact our view of the second coming of Jesus Christ? Well, let me show you some correlations between Revelation, John's visions, and what Jeremiah saw. And this gives you now a full description of what Jeremiah saw. We just looked at a brief section here in Jeremiah. Babylon is a cup of gold. Jeremiah and John saw that and prophesied that. Babylon is located on many waters. Both Jeremiah and John stated that. Babylon will be destroyed suddenly. Now, it happened, but there's more to the story. Babylon will be destroyed by fire. Jeremiah and John prophesy that. That's a correlation. Babylon will never again be rebuilt and inhabited. The fact is that it has partially been rebuilt, and it certainly has been inhabited over the years. And the prophecies say it never would happen. Babylon will fall like a stone, which we've seen in the passage I've already shared, into the river. It's gone forever. God's people should flee. We see that in Jeremiah and Revelation. When Babylon falls, heaven will rejoice. Again, you see a coordination between Jeremiah's statement and John's statement in the book of Revelation. Now, when we look at that, that brings in some interesting if questions. And here is an if question. If these prophecies refer to the rebuilding of the literal city of Babylon, then this would be a remarkable sign regarding the second coming of Jesus Christ, because it's in the context of the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, there are Bible scholars that believe that this is not the literal city of Babylon. It's an idea, it's a philosophy, it's a religious system. But it's also possible that it's the literal city of Babylon. That could be true. And so here's the second if question. If the church is removed prior to this event, which we call the rapture, and many believe that it could have happened 7 years or so prior to this rebuilding process, then this would be a significant sign regarding the second coming of Jesus Christ. Many believe that the church will be raptured 7 years before the Great Tribulation, or during the tribulation period, before Christ comes. And it seems like all of this happens within that 7-year period where there is a rebuilding of Babylon. And then Babylon is destroyed. Now, it's really interesting because to rebuild a city is a huge process. How could that happen? Well, let me just give you an illustration. Brasilia. Brasilia actually replaced Rio de Janeiro as the capital of Brazil. Brasilia was built in 41 months. Now think about that. From 1956 to April 21, 1960, when it was inhabited by 140,000 people. Here are some pictures. Brasilia, early development in 1960. Brasilia in 1970. That's 10 years. Think about that. Here, by the way, is Brasilia's original city plan. It's like an airplane, as it were. And notice how it's laid out. There you have it, Brasilia today. Here's a night view. Brasilia at night. Today, there are over 2 million people who live in Brasilia. It's happened in other major cities of the world. For example, Abuja, Nigeria, was a rebuilt city, or a city that was built to be the capital of Nigeria. Incidentally, I had the privilege of speaking in Abuja, in a basketball arena. I spoke to 5,000 African pastors in the city of Abuja. Abuja was another city rebuilt, or built to be the capital of Nigeria. So the fact is that cities can be rebuilt or built in a hurry, relatively speaking. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility. Now, I want to make one other observation that relates to this principle. And let me restate the principle, and then I'll make this observation. I've called this signs of the times. Even though the specific date regarding the second coming of Jesus Christ is unknown, we are to be aware that certain events predict his future return. And let me make this observation. God doesn't complicate with mysterious situations that we have to unravel to determine if it's a true sign. And today we have people who are saying they've discovered mysteries, unlocked mysteries that are very complicated mysteries. Well, God gives us very clear signs. And if indeed the city of Babylon is going to be rebuilt, we're not going to have to stand around and say, is this a possibility? I think the fact of the matter is, if that city is rebuilt and becomes a world, eventually a world phenomena, and then is ultimately destroyed forever, that's a pretty good sign that the coming of Jesus Christ might be near. Nevertheless, the fact is, we should be ready to meet him at any moment.